All flights have been grounded. Heavy storms are rolling in from the northwest.
I had to escape. The city was sticky and cool. I drove all night.
The distance is nothing when home means everything.
Get 5.9% financing for 72 months on the 2023 Grand Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer.
that AT&T helmet will change my whole life. The world just instantly lifted off of my shoulders.
The magic never leaves you when you stay with the Disney Resorts Collection. Making every day more magical than your last and bringing you extra time in any of the 4 theme parks.
All right, sorry. I had to announce in the group chat that the Cowboys won, and that was a crazy game. So, put things in context. the Cowboys, they went down the fourth quarter. They're playing the Lions today, and they went down the fourth quarter. They scored. Lions came back, and they literally had Cowboys kicked a field goal. They went up by 7 points, so they're leading by 7 points. Lions didn't have any timeouts. They started 25-yard line and drove the entire field, scored a touchdown. Literally went for 2, converted successfully, but they threw it to the lineman. And the lineman didn't check in as eligible, so it was a penalty. So they try to go for it again, unsuccessful, but Michael Parsons jumped off sides. So goes back originally where it was. They still go for it on 2. They need to kick the field goal or kick the extra point just to tie the game, go to the overtime. But Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, just wanted to go out there with the win, and they were unsuccessful, and Cowboys won. Oh, that was pretty crazy. I'm a Cowboys fan, so that was big time. And I'm playing fantasy. Got knocked out, unfortunately, right before the championship round in one of my leagues. So I'm playing one of my good friends, Garrett, for the third place position, and I have Sam Laporta, who's the Lions tight end, and they just gave it to him like 3 or 4 straight times on that last drive. So extra points. I love it. I wanted him to score as many points as possible, but then also make sure the Cowboys win. So it was a win-win. All right, but let's go ahead, and I guess today was a pretty normal day. Saw some family and stuff on my dad's side, and then we went out. I went out with my mom and my stepdad. We went out, had Cheesecake Factory because they have a bunch of gift cards and stuff. So had a nice pasta dinner, and then after that we went and watched a movie, watched the new Aquaman, and honestly, it's not that great of a movie. I think it was entertaining, but it wasn't that good of a movie. I kind of wish we saw another movie, but you win some, you lose some, you know? So I'd rate Aquaman, the new one, like 6 out of 10, to be honest. All right, but I apologize. It's kind of late, but I deliver on my promises. It's 10:30 my time right now. Movie ended around 9:30, so we got back around 10 and had to finish watching the game. That's why I'm a little bit late, but we are here nonetheless. So let's go ahead and hop into tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is where to find high quality women. So this is a big, where's the gold mine for all these good women out there, you know? Just because dating apps, it doesn't do it for you as far as high quality women. Obviously, you have to sift through what Rich Cooper says, a lot of dirt, especially with dating apps, to kind of get the ones that are good. And even so, and just meeting them in normal, regular, everyday conditions as well. But there are definitely places where you can find, you have to dig through Leicester, essentially, to find a good quality woman. And I'm not going to necessarily go over what is a high quality woman, just because, at the end of the day, most guys are just looking for someone who's, 1, attractive, 2, kind and nice, and then 3, isn't like a big arguer or headache. She's peaceful, and what people say is cooperative, or what my guy Kevin Samuel says. You want her to be FBI, feminine, beautiful, inspirational. So where do you find these women? So first I'm going to talk about, we're going to highlight the best places to meet women, and then the worst places to meet women. So let's go ahead, hop into the best places to meet women. So this is just based off of my experience, 26 years old, my experience dating so far. Obviously, I just kind of my religious beliefs. I don't hang out in bars and clubs or many of those places too often. So that's actually going to be in the list of my worst places. But best places to meet high quality women. Number 1, actually, these are a number of places I've even met girls I've dated myself. So, best places. This is no particular order, but library. Library is a really good place, especially when you're still in school or college. So typically guys that are in their 20s or whatever, they're most likely still in school. If you're not still in school, this might not be as good of an option for you. Just because, no one really goes to a normal library. So maybe you could replace library with Barnes & Noble or something like that. if you're already graduated from school. But library is a really good place, especially when you're in college, just because people go to there to study and stuff, and so you're going to find a girl that is kind of a little bit more focused on her studies. I know some libraries, I know my experience at BYU, there's kind of like the area where all the popular people would hang out. So maybe not necessarily there, but in other parts of the library, because especially during finals and stuff like that, or even not specifically during finals. Actually, I probably won't recommend during finals because everyone's kind of stressed out. But during the school year, just finding a place, and then you can look at people and watch people as you're kind of doing your own thing. So I think it's a good place, and it's really good because even though maybe people will look at you if you like a cool approach a girl, but it's very quiet and you have to be really quick, and so you don't have necessarily a lot of time to talk, which is honestly, it works in your favor, just because most times if you're at a party or a social gathering where there's lots of talking, you might talk too much, and you kind of get to the point. I was listening to Michael Sartain and him talking with this dating coach, and they were talking about you want to leave at the high point of the conversation, or get contact information at the high point of the conversation rather than the low point. Typically guys, and I've done this many times as well, I've kind of made this mistake, but you exchange the number when you kind of run out of things to say. So you're talking, and then after you kind of had the conversation, you see the conversation kind of dying down, then you ask for the contact information, for a phone number, for Instagram or whatever. That's what you don't want to do. So what you want to do is when you're at the peak of whatever you're talking in common or whatever, you're like, hey, I'm at my buddy's party or whatever, or hey, I have this big test coming up. I just want to stop by and talk with you. Thought you were really attractive. Want to take you out. Let's exchange contact info. So library, that is one. I met one of my girlfriends I was dating back in college at the library. It was a funny story. So I saw her. I actually didn't even see her face. I just saw her from the back of her head, and I was like, I could just tell that she was attractive, just by her hair, kind of like what she was wearing, and so yeah, it was good judgment by my part. So I was like, all right, how am I going to talk to her? Well, there wasn't anyone sitting next to her, so it's funny. Someone walked by, they dropped the pen, but they kept walking, and I tried to give it back, and I was like, I could use this to my advantage. So I picked up that drop pen that person left behind, went up to her like, hey, did you drop this pen? She's like, oh no, I don't think that's my pen. I'm like, okay, it must be someone else. Anyway, can I grab the seat next to you? And then I started talking with her, and it was history. I dated her for a while. But yeah, that's one spot, is the library. Whether you're in university, if you're kind of graduated, then it's not as good of an option, or not as good of a place. So maybe like Barnes & Noble or something like that. Or even like a Starbucks. I'd say that's somewhat of an equivalent. Or someone's kind of going somewhere to get a little bit of peace and quiet, but also trying to maybe do something, whether it be studying or work or whatever. All right, next is networking events. So I think this is really good just because it's a very social environment. It's not strictly someone you particularly work with at work, which I'm going to list that as one of my worst places is work, just because, well, this depends. So you don't want to date anyone you directly work with, just because it's a conflict of interest. If anything goes wrong, it's just not worth it. It's not worth dating one of your coworkers. But if it's something like a networking event, or maybe like a big company party where it's like someone like on the total other side of the company, especially if you work for a big company, then I think that's fine. But someone that's you see on a regular basis, or you work with on a semi-regular basis at work, that's a no-go. Do not do that. I've heard too many bad stories about that. So networking events, these are events where, like I said, you're kind of in the same similar work, but you're not directly working with each other. So I think this is a good opportunity, and it's a very social environment as well. You can get to know each other and go from there. So networking events is one. All right, the third best place, one of the best places to meet high quality women. Or networking events is good just because they typically, not saying all working women are necessarily high quality women, but you can find a higher quality woman for sure. All right, next, number 3 is classes. So this is like classes of any kind, whether it be like a gym class. Now, I'm not a big proponent, honestly, of guys going to gym classes unless it's like a spin class, or don't do any of the Zumba stuff. I think that's kind of weird. Maybe like a yoga class. I actually need to get back into a little bit more yoga myself, just get more flexible. It doesn't have to necessarily be just a fitness class, but like a cooking class or something like that. You can definitely meet a lot of women, and especially just anything you're doing that is your extracurricular or something social or something like your hobby, I think is really good, because then you meet that person at the class and you already have something in common. And they have something going for themselves in their life, just because they're interested in stuff. And typically, if you're going to that class and they're going to that class, you have that common interest in mind. So I think that's a good one. Classes. I'd say you generally want to stay away from the girls that like don't really do anything. And we can save that for another story for another day. But number 3, classes. Sorry, it's like extremely hot in here. But next one, number 4. This is actually a really good one. Volunteering. So any volunteering events I think is really good. I kind of coincide this. Actually, this is another point, so I won't bring this up. But volunteering events are really good, just because charity events, for example, where you're doing some sort of service for an organization or for someone who's people that are less fortunate. I think this is really good, just because if she's there doing that, then she kind of has her heart in the right place, and she's probably serviceable in a relationship as well. So this is a really good opportunity, whether it's at the local shelter, or especially like anything with pets, honestly. I think it's probably really good. I haven't tried the pet one specifically myself, but honestly, that'd be interesting to try that. Obviously, every single girl that volunteers there might not be like drop dead gorgeous, There's probably some not as attractive girls, but if you can find an attractive girl that is there, then I think the better, for sure. All right. Next one is social circles and friend groups. So this is getting into like top tier best places to meet high quality women, just because social circles and friends, just because you can kind of, especially if you have a good circle of friends, they kind of already vet the girl for you in a way. Obviously you do your own vetting process, but typically if you have a good group of friends, then they invite other people into their friend circles. And this is honestly how I expand kind of my network, especially for my dating potential, just because even though there's this one group or girl that I might not be super interested with, she has friends, and then her friends have friends, and you just build out your network of available women, and then the chances of you finding a high quality woman are definitely a lot higher. So social circle, friend groups, and then this also includes parties, but specifically parties where the people throwing the party, going to be at the party, etc. Just because you can have people introduce yourself. That's honestly one of the best ways to meet a girl, is someone introducing you to someone. There's countless stories, and I've had these experiences as well. It's like one girl I dated before coming out here is, at first I didn't know who she was. This was actually a year ago, and I tried to hit her up, and she was dating someone at the time. And then later on, she heard from a friend about me as well. And she's like, "Oh, I remember that guy. He like DM'd me or whatever." So she DM'd me back, and then we started dating for a little bit. So introductions are big time, because then people vet for you, and they're more likely to be open and approachable, and they'll lower their guard a little bit. So that's a really solid one, is social circle, friend groups. So don't just be like that, try to be this Sigma male guy who like doesn't have any friends and stuff. Definitely be on your grind, do your work, put your work first and your purpose, but have a network of friends. That way you can get introduced to more girls. All right, and then I'd say this is probably the highest, the best place to meet high quality women, just because of all encompassing social aspect. And this might be something unique in my church, but I know there's many other churches out there. So the place is church, just because one, she's religious, so that's typically a little bit definitely, I'd say, a green flag, just because they have morals, they have values. Obviously, all religious girls or church-going girls may not be the highest of the high caliber. They might do some stuff on the side, you know what I mean. But the chances of that happening are a lot lower in a girl that goes to church versus like doesn't go to church at all. And specifically in our church, my church, there's lots of social stuff that all the single adults, that's what they call them, YSA, young single adults, do. And like we have our own ward, have our own congregation where we all gather, and it's like all people in their like 18 to their 30s. So it's really good. And there's churches and there's what we call wards, so different congregations all around the country in different areas. So you can, obviously the best place is Utah, just because there's the most amount of members there. But there are lots of other pockets with highly populated cities. I would try to stick to highly populated cities as well, just because it's more working professionals, especially around like colleges and universities, especially bigger ones. Then there's going to tend to be more options as well. But like I said, high quality, just because, like I said, a girl that goes to church has a higher probability of being higher quality, and not like these other girls out here on the streets, but and high morals, high character, and they pretty much all of them want to date, and eventually they want to get married. So they definitely have that mindset as well. And I'd say probably generally for other churches as well, whether it be Christian or I'm not super familiar with Jewish or Islam churches, but I would assume something similar as well. So best place to meet a high quality woman, church. Go to church. And obviously this entails that you are religious, or at least somewhat religious yourself. Obviously, if you're not like religious at all, like I probably wouldn't recommend going to a church to pick up a girl, just because the values aren't going to add up, and she's going to obviously see that. And typically people want similar values to themselves, so keep that in mind. All right, worst places to meet girls, and trust me, I've learned from these mistakes myself, so I've gone through this. Worst place are like typical like bars, clubs. I mean, this is not just for like the quantity of women. Obviously, if you want quantity of women, like sure, you can hit up these places. But high quality women, definitely not. So bars, clubs, the typical stuff. Just because you don't wanna wife up a girl that likes to party and go to the club all the time, do you? No. All right, this is also another one I mentioned before. Actually, the best places, parties where you know the people. One of the worst places, and this is from my own experience, is parties where you don't know anyone. This is the worst, because literally it's essentially a club at that point, where you're just kind of like trying to hit up girls, and yeah, it's not a good experience to find high quality women, just because even if you do find some girl or whatever, they might just want to hook up or something. They're not looking for anything serious at that kind of place, especially if they don't know you. So, and it's they're typically in a group with all their girlfriends and stuff, so it's very hard to kind of communicate individually with them. And loud music playing is just not an environment to meet new people, for sure, unless you're already have people introducing you and stuff like that, and that's a totally different story. So parties where you don't know anyone, one of the worst places, because I've gone to many of parties and tried to chat up with many of girls and to do some prospecting, some sourcing, but does not work out well. All right, and I mentioned this one earlier, but work, just because, especially if you're working closely with someone, like I tend to stay away from that, just because I've heard too many stories. Stuff happens, stuff goes wrong. If it goes great, then I think awesome, but the chances of stuff going wrong, like what are the chances of you dating someone you work with and you like actually go marry them? Probably pretty low. So there's lots of other women, many other places. I know you may spend a lot of your time at work, but like I said, networking events, people on the whole other side of the company, and this being a big company, not a small company, there's lots of other options, lots of other opportunities that I'd say you have that won't screw you over in your professional life, just because that's one of the last things you want to do, especially is hurting your ability to make income and make money. Earning comes first. It's what we learned yesterday from financial literacy. But that's just a few places I've mentioned. I might go into further depth on this. Honestly, I don't know why, but this room is insanely hot at the moment. So I'm starting to get actually a headache. I should probably drink some water. But we were probably going to end it at that tonight, like I said. And this is just based on my personal experiences and also my how a lot of my friends have met their girlfriends, their wives, and stuff like that. Big two, just recapping, big two best places: social circles, friend groups, parties where you know people and you get introduced to them. And then the next one, church. Because typically your friends are at church as well. And even if maybe you haven't been in church in a while, you go back, you can make a group of friends. And I would love to experiment with maybe like different churches and the fact of like social circle and like meeting new girls as well. So I think that would be an interesting experiment to see how that goes. For me, being not a member of their congregation normally. I've actually talked about this with my friend, because one of my friends, he's not a member, but he kind of knows about the church and he's learned a little bit from the missionaries, but he kind of wants to come to our church just because he knows they're high quality women. And this is actually kind of where it stems from. It's like, yeah, these other girls out here, like, I ain't trying to wife them up, but someone that goes to your church, like, I know they're good, high quality women, so I'm gonna try my chances there. So shout out to you, Johnny. All right, we'll leave it at that tonight. Big Cowboys win tonight. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. Like I said, I'm gonna do a year in review, so I'm finishing up the thumbnail for that. Behind on honestly a lot of editing. My head hurts. I'm probably gonna hit the hay tonight, but I'll get that up tomorrow and see y'all tomorrow. Almost Happy New Year. And this is the time to grind. This is the time to work. Everyone's resting right now from Christmas to New Year's Day. Go hard right now just to get ahead of everyone else. I'll leave it at that. As with everything, trying to help you guys get stronger, smarter, healthier, wealthier. So go ahead, follow for more lives, tips, and always stay pumped. All right, catch y'all tomorrow. Peace. Cue the outro.